Hey, welcome back, American Government class. It's Thursday, February 24th, 2021. Hope you're having a great week so far. We have had a few classes in a row now that have been quite a bit of work, whether it's been tests, corrections, and then vocab. So today, we got a bit of an easy one. A 5-minute review, we're even going to squash that because all we did last class really was vocabulary. Those of you who did not give me vocab, it's a 0 in the grade book right now, and it's the first grade that's in your grade book for this second 6 weeks. So it's very important that you get me that vocab ASAP. For those of you who did do vocab, you did a great job. Continue to do good work. Those of you who didn't, like I said, get it to me as soon as you can so I can get you that grade in the grade book. Today, we are going to start our Unit 4 on the legislative branch with some United States Congress fun facts. Now remember, there is the United States Congress for the entire country. They make laws for the entire country. And then there's state congresses like Arizona and California and Texas and New Mexico. And every state has a state congress or a state legislature that make the laws for their own states. We're going to be talking about the United States Congress, who makes laws for the entire country. We're going to talk about some of those fun facts today. Then I'm going to hit you with your attendance and assignment, and we'll be on our way to Friday and B-Day, and then the weekend. So, what you're going to need today, very simple, a piece of paper and a pencil, and go ahead, go get those right now. If you need to hit pause and come on back, feel free to do so, but you will need both of those for our U.S. Congress Fun Facts Notes. Let's go ahead and get into those now. Okay, so like normal, let's go ahead. Go Cornell style notes today. Make sure you got your paper with a little bit of a line, not down the middle, but a little bit to the left. Title this puppy, U.S. Congress Fun Facts. Line doesn't have to be perfect, but make it the best that you can. And what we're going to do here is start off with something that actually just happened recently, and that is Congressional Elections. So this is a good time to tell you as well, anytime you hear the word Congress or congressional, we're talking about the United States House of Representatives and the Senate. Congress are those two together. The Senate is not Congress. The House is not Congress. But the two of them together is Congress. And when we have congressional elections, we are talking about the Senate and the House together. So, starting off, our first note on congressional elections is that they happen every 2 years. Every 2 years, we have congressional elections, and the elections happen in the even-numbered years. So, last year, 2020, we had congressional elections. When will our next congressional elections be? I'm really hoping you said 2022. If not, go to Mr. Rivera's math class, go to Ms. Pion's math class, watch their videos right now, email them, tell them you need help adding 0 plus 2, or I guess 20 plus 2. 2022, that's the next time we're having congressional elections. Now, when we talk about the House of Representatives, how many members were there? Do you guys remember? In the House, it's the big one, 435. All 435 members of the House of Representatives are up for election every 2 years. In fact, let's make sure we squeeze that word in there. All 435 members of the House, I'm just going to say House, or House of Representatives, are elected every time. So, every 2 years, all 435 members of the House are up for re-election. If they just got elected 2 years ago, they still have to go up for re-election. Their terms are only 2 years long, so every 2 years they're going up for re-election. Then if they win, they're up for re-election. Then if they win, they're up for re-election. If they lose, Well, they're no longer part of the House, but they could go for election or try to get reelected later on, 2 years later. So all 435 members of the House are elected every time. However, in the Senate, it is much different. We know that senators' terms are not 2 years long, they are 6 years long. So not all 435, or not all 100 senators, all 100 senators are up for re-election. Only 1/3 of the senators are elected each time. Now, my math students who went and saw Mr. Rivera's and Ms. Payan and Ms. Rodriguez's videos just now, you're saying to yourself, but 1/3 of 100 is 33.3333. That doesn't make sense. You're right. What we do is we have 33 2 years, 33 up for re-election the next 2 years, and then 34 up for re-election the following 2 years. What we call this, just so you know, and it might be on our next test, is something called staggered terms. Staggered terms. Now this is kind of a hard concept to get. So what we're going to do, this doesn't need to be part of your notes, but I'm going to break it down for you a little bit so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Every 2 years, let's just say, we'll start back, where's my black marker? Back in 2018, we had an election. We know we had one 2 years before that, 2 years after that, which was just last year. Now our next election we know is 2022. And after that, 2024. All right, let's go ahead and let's make the House of Representatives pink. In 2016, how many members were up for election of the House of Representatives? 435. What about in 2018? 435. 2020, you get the idea, 435, 435, and 435. All of the members were up for re-election every 2 years. Now in the Senate, only 1/3 are. So in 2016, we had 1/3. We'll say that's 33. We had 33 senators up for re-election in 2016. Now a senator's term is 6 years, so they don't have to worry about 18 or 2020. The next time these 33 will be up for re-election is in, my math people, 2022. So these 33 people will have a job for the next 6 years, and if they get re-elected here, they'll have a job for the next 6 years, but they have to go up for re-election. Now let's use another color. We'll use purple for our other senators. 33 senators went up for re-election in 2018. They don't have to worry about 2020 or 2022 because they were elected in 2018. They have a term of 6 years, so 2024 is when they are up for re-election. Now finally, we'll go with red for our 34 senators. Our 34 senators didn't have to worry about it here, here, or up. Definitely here. 34 senators, the remaining senators of the 100, would be up for re-election in 2020. And since they have a 6-year term, they don't have to wait until 2026. So we can go boom, 2026. We know we're going to have all 435 of our members of the House. And then these guys, the 34 that were up for re-election, they are up for re-election there. And that's what we call staggered terms, but only for the Senate, because the House is all 435 every single time. Now, to throw something in there just to really make you think, going back to last unit and talking about political processes, and actually looking ahead to next unit where we talk about the executive branch and the president was just elected in 2020. That means the first time we had a presidential election, or not the first time, the time before that would have been in 2016. So here, we had one president getting elected. Donald Trump was elected in 2016. A presidential term is 4 years. not 2. So in 2018, he didn't have an election to worry about. Re-election was not a worry until 2020, which was last year. He lost, Joe Biden won, but boom, we had our one presidential election right there. When will the next presidential election be? Well, 4 years from then. So 2024, Joe Biden will be up for re-election. And that is how the election system works. There are elections every 2 years for Congress. This one that's right in the middle of the presidential elections, that's called a midterm election because it's in the middle of the term of the presidency. All right, now let's go ahead and get back to our notes. Now, the next topic we're going to talk about is a congressional term. We just talked about terms of senators, terms of members of the House, and presidential terms. But when we talk about a congressional term, remember, congressional means both the House and Senate together. So a congressional term, think of that as both of them working together for a specific amount of time. Now, a congressional term is 2 years long. And remember here, just a side note, with our Cornell notes, you want to skip a line right here and then go down and have these guys match up. So a congressional term is 2 years long. And they start very early on in the year. It actually begins at noon, which is 12 o'clock during the day, 12 o'clock p.m. And the date is on January 3rd, and obviously the odds or the odd years, because if our elections are in the even years in November, they start working the following year in January on the odd years. So just this January 2021, on the 3rd, the members of Congress started working. You guys, I believe, were still on winter break, so they started working before you. But a congressional term begins at noon, January 3rd, the odd years, and what's really important to know about this is there are 2 what we call sessions per term. Each time they get together, it's called a session of Congress. A good way for you to think about this is if a term is 2 years long and there's 2 sessions in this term, they usually have 1 per year. Okay, so there's about 1 term per year, and there's 2 sessions per term because a term is 2 years long. I know it's a little weird, but just think of it as this vocab word, that's why it's underlined. A session, there's 2 of them during these 2 years, and it's usually 1 each year. Now, how do they decide? If they start on January 3rd, and that's a rule, how do they get to decide to call it quits and not be in session? And that's what it's called when Congress is together. It's called being in session. How do they get to decide how they don't show up to work, I guess? Well, think about what you guys do. When you have school, you have a date you have to report. And when do you get to decide when to leave? Do you get to make that decision? No, it's just on the calendar, right? You say, oh, last day of school is this. Not the same for members of Congress. Members of Congress get to vote on when they want to end their session. So it's actually called adjourning. If you've ever watched a court show, or hopefully not been in court, when you're in court and they take a break, they say court is adjourned. That means, hey, it's over or it's breaking for right now. We're taking a break, court's adjourned, it's done for the day, or in this case, the session of Congress is adjourned for the time being. The members get to vote. Members vote to adjourn. And this happens in both houses. And I want you guys to make a note of that. Both houses, both the Senate and the House of Representatives have to vote on this. So it's just like voting on a law or voting on a bill. They'll all get together and they have to vote and decide whether or not they're going to adjourn. If some people are like, yo, no, man, I want to keep working. We've got the people's work to do. It's not time to go home. We don't need to end this session. They would vote no. They don't want to adjourn. And whoever gets more votes, that's really what's going to happen as long as both houses agree. So that's how they end their session of Congress. And if they do that, there's always the case that something crazy could happen. There could be a national emergency. For example, just last year, we had a national emergency with the coronavirus. It happened in March around America. That's when it started. But what if it would have happened when Congress was not in session? If they had already adjourned? Well, there's one single person who can call them back and say, we need a special session of Congress. Any guesses on who that person might be? If you said the President of the United States, you are correct. The President, we'll abbreviate, the President can call a special session of Congress. And that's what it's called, a special session. And that means all the members of Congress who maybe left Washington, D.C. and flew back to their states have to come on back to Washington, D.C. so that they can vote and hear things and kind of make some decisions on what to do as a country. Ooh, excuse me. Now, let's move on to the next topic. The next topic we're covering is apportionment. And apportionment is basically what it sounds like. When you think, hey, I'm going to get a portion of the potatoes, it means you're going to get a certain amount. So when we're talking about apportionment, we're talking about how we apportion the seats of Congress. So we have these weird numbers, 435, 100 in the Senate. I guess 100 is not that weird. It's a nice round number. But how do we get those numbers? Well, that is apportionment. Apportionment. This orange is a little hard to see, so I'll make sure that I explain everything very clearly here. Apportionment goes all the way back to 1929. A 1929 law set apportionment at 435 in the House. So the 1929 law set the number at 435 for the House of Reps. Little arrow right there. 435 for the House of Reps. For the Senate, it's pretty simple. We go back to our Virginia plan and our New Jersey plan and wanting to have equal representation for each state. Each state gets 2 senators. We have 50 states, so that's why we have the number 100 for the Senate. If we were to ever get another state, there is certainly talk about making Puerto Rico a state or making Washington, D.C. a state. If either one of those ever became a state, they would be entitled to 2 senators as well. We would then have 51 states, so we would have 102 senators total. But since we only have 50, that number stays at 100. So in 1929, they set the law back at 435. Now, we have something every 10 years, and this is a review from last unit. You should know, what do we have happen every 10 years? The census. The census happens every 10 years. And why is this important? Why are we talking about this again? Well, because that's how these 435 seats get distributed or apportioned to the different states. We count the people. That's what a census is, a population count. We count them every 10 years. And we say, hey, where are all the people at? Hey, man, there's a lot of people in California. There's not that many people in Wyoming, though. So Wyoming, you're only going to get 3 of these 435 seats. California, we're going to give you 55. And it's all based on how many people you have in your state. That's why the census, or one of the reasons why the census, is so important. Because it shows where the people are, where they're living, where they're moving to. And it sets the number in each state for how many members of the House you get. Now, reapportionment. Reapportionment is a completely different word, but on the same lines. Reapportionment. You guys ever have to do that? Like spell it out in your head, word by word. Reapportionment. What is reapportionment? Well, that's when, after we have this census, like we just did, where we go ahead and we redistribute where all those seats were. So what I want you to put down is redistribution of seats in the House. And this is what's about to happen right now. We're finishing up our census results. It takes a while to get that information, but once you figure out where everybody lives, then you start redistributing seats. So take, for example, Arizona. We are one of the fastest growing states in the United States. People want to live here for some reason. I don't know if it has anything to do with it being 75 degrees and sunny outside right now, but Texas, Chicago, the entire Northeast, New York, they're all covered in snow. And you guys could go lay out by the pool if you wanted to. You could just walk around with a tank top and flip-flops on. A lot of people are moving to Arizona. So in the past 10 years, we're going to see how many more people move to Arizona. And if it's enough, they will give us more seats in the House of Representatives. Now, we have 9 total right now. However, if more people move to Arizona and not too many move away and our population grows, then we might get another seat, and we would have 10 total seats in the House of Representatives. Now, if we have 10, that means we got one from somewhere. Does this number go up to 436? No, not today. It does not, and nor does it ever. It's going to stay at 435. So if that number stays at 435 and Arizona goes up 1, what happens to another state? What has to happen? Another state has to lose a seat. So they would look around and say, well, who lost a lot of people? Where did all these people come from that are living in Arizona now? And they would redistribute. We would get 1 seat, and another state would have to lose a seat. So that's why the census is very important and has a huge impact on the House of Representatives. Finally, redistricting. We have to do this after the Senate too. Redistricting. And by the way, did I just say we have to do this after the Senate too? I can't recall, but I meant to say census. After the census, you have to do redistricting. And this goes back to what we talked about last unit with gerrymandering. Remember, gerrymandering is redistricting, we're good, but doing it to the benefit of one party. So redistricting is simply changing the boundaries of where your seats are. Let me give you a quick example. First, let's get this definition out. This is making new boundaries. And I spelled boundaries wrong. See, I knew it was going to happen. I've been talking about it. Bound with an A. Boundaries. Making new boundaries. We say boundaries, but what are they really? It's redistricting. They are districts. Now let's take a look. By no means is this an actual representation of Arizona's 9 districts, or Arizona for that matter. How does Arizona look? Is this? Looks like Arizona, or maybe Bart Simpson. I don't know. Here we go. We need to have Arizona divided up into 9 different districts, okay? 9 districts that each have about the same amount of people, right? About 500,000 people. We said 500,000. So we know that there's going to be a district right here in the middle of the city. That's district number 1. Phoenix, the surrounding area, that's 2. Here's another one, that's 3. This big old area, that's a lot of area, but not a lot of people. It's the same amount, 500,000 about, so that's district 4. Here, this whole big one, that's district 5. Right here, this is kind of a bigger one. We'll say that's district 7. District 8 goes all the way here. Boom. And then that leaves us right here with district 9. Those are our 9 districts. for argument's sake. This is not real. Now, if we get 10, if we get another seat, and we now have 10 seats in the House of Representatives due to reapportionment, we have to redraw these lines because you can't just say, hey, let's make this District 10. Because remember, you have to have 500,000 people about in each district. This whole area had 500,000 for District 5, and we just added a little sliver. There's probably only 5,000 people there. So when you redistrict, you do what we're about to do. You take an eraser and you go, let's get rid of all of these districts. Let's get rid of all of them. You go back and you take a look at the census, because it doesn't only tell you where people are moving as far as states go, but it tells you where they're living in your state, what different cities there are. We still know that Arizona has lots of, Phoenix downtown, that's got 1. This area right here, 2. This area right here is 3. Now this one gained a lot of people, so that's 4. We'll make this big one. Still, nobody really moved there, so that's 5. There's another district right here, though. Let's say this is, I don't know. A lot of people moved there. That'll be District 7. Big old District 6 right there. We got 7. Here's 8. And then we'll split these guys up, 9 and 10. And it's still similar, but we had to redistrict the lines. We had to redraw the boundaries because we had people move here, and they didn't all just move to the same spot. So we had to kind of reshape all of the boundary lines. And that's how you do redistricting. Now let's take a look at our last piece of notes for the day. All right, our last topic that we're discussing today is why most of these people become members of the House of Representatives or of the Senate. You can't talk, or you can't not talk about the bennies, baby. That's right, the benefits. What are the benefits of being a member of the House of Representatives or of the Senate? Well, like any other one, what's the benefit, the number one benefit of having a job or a career? Because we don't think about it like that, do we? We hear senators and members of the House. We just think of them as representatives and them working for the people, but that's what they're doing. They're working. This is their job. So what's the number one benefit of any job? That's right. The young moolah, baby. The salary. And these guys do not work for pennies. Nope. They work for quite a bit of money. Their salary is $174,000 per year. Not total, per year. That is quite a bit of money. That's what a salary is, how much you get paid per year. 174 G's. They're making it rain, but not with government papers, with cash, man. They are making a ton of money. Member of the House, you have a 2-year term, so you're guaranteed this twice. Member of the Senate, 6-year term. If you get elected senator one time, you get that for 6 straight years. You know how much money that is? That's over $1 million for your term as a senator. I wouldn't mind making over $1 million for 6 years of my life where I just make laws and listen to the people. That's not bad. That's the number one benefit, the salary. Number two, something that, maybe you got as a kid. These guys still get. What happens when you're a kid and you clean your room and you, vacuum and you do the dishes? Maybe some of you are like me. You don't get in trouble if you do those things. Other people get allowances. Guess who also gets allowance? That's just money for basically doing so. They get a travel allowance. Travel allowance. Now, what does that mean? A travel allowance. Well, the first thing is it's straight up more cash money. Why do they get this cash money? Well, they, as I mentioned earlier, work in Washington, D.C., in that Capitol building that was at the beginning of this video. That huge building. That's not the White House, that's the U.S. Capitol. They work there, and that's in Washington, D.C., which is on the east side of the country. It's not in Washington, that's a state, on the west side of the country. And now I see it's reversed. So Washington is over here. You know what? Let's take a look at the old map. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. United States. That's the world. Let's try that again. United States. We should really do a blooper reel here for these videos. Here's Washington. Way on the west side, northwest, up top, far, far west. That's Washington, the state. Washington, D.C., where all these people work and where the White House is all the way over here. Right on kind of the boundary line of Maryland, Virginia. It's right, its own little area. We talked about this earlier. The District of Columbia, it's its own little section that's not a state at all. It's not part of any state. It's a district. It's a federal district. This is where they work, and this is where the president works. However, they represent all these people. So our Arizona senators, they work here. Where did I just have? Right there. They work right there in Washington, D.C. But they probably have offices here, too, because they represent all these people in Arizona. So they have to fly back and forth, make some laws, listen to the people, listen to what the people want, go vote for those people. And that's how a senator and a member of the House does their job. So they need a travel allowance. That's another benefit. So they get basically money to fly for free. Another thing, first two have talked about money, why not make it another one? They get an excellent pension and excellent insurance. Now, what's a pension? A pension is basically retirement. It's money you get when you're done doing your job. You get to retire and you get money over and over and over and over. So that's awesome. You get that every year for not working. It's retirement. And insurance, they get great insurance basically for free, where they don't have to pay for things like health or medical, dental, all these different catastrophes that could happen. They don't have to pay for it because they have great insurance. The next one, they get office space. It's basically free of charge. Don't have to pay rent on that office space. And they also get funds, since we're still talking about money, to hire staff. They can't do the job by themselves, so they have people working for them and with them, and they get money to pay them. They don't even have to pay them out of their salary. They get tons of money. Another one is something called free postage. Or I should say, they get free postage, which is called the franking privilege. Now that's a vocab word. And what that means is they get to send anything they want, basically, for free, which is a huge, huge benefit when they are going against somebody who is not an incumbent. When they are going up for re-election for their job, let's say our current senator was running against me. They get free postage because they're the incumbent. That's one of their benefits. I do not. I do not get free postage. I have to pay for my postage. You're thinking right now, why does postage matter? Who cares about postage? Think about all the flyers you got this past October, July, June, August, September. People were mailing you stuff left and right, whether you knew it or not. They get to mail it for free. They'll say, hey, look at me. Look at all the work I'm doing. I'm going to send this picture of me and the president out to 1,000 people, and they get to do it for free. If I wanted to say, hey, look at what I'm doing and send it out via mail, my postage is going to cost each single letter I send, I'm going to have to put a stamp on there and pay for it. That's a ton of money when we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of people and sending numerous letters and flyers. So the free postage, that is huge. That is a big benefit. And then finally, this is a weird one, but it's an old one. They cannot be sued for two things. They cannot be sued for things called libel or slander. And that's basically saying what you want about someone, saying whatever you want about somebody that's not true, or writing something that's not true about someone. Those two things you can be sued for in everyday life. These guys cannot be sued for libel or slander But there's a catch. For anything they say, in a very specific spot. They can't just go out and be in the streets yelling off stuff that's not true. But as long as they are on the floor of the Capitol building in either of their respective houses, the House or the Senate, anything they say on the floor or in committee, which we'll talk about later. Committee is basically the smaller groups they work in. If they say anything about anybody else there, they cannot get in trouble for any of that stuff. They can't be sued. So they can say, hey, I don't like Tommy Jean over there. He has a history of killing baby turtles, and you shouldn't vote for him because he's a baby turtle killer. Now, obviously, hopefully it's not true, but he can't be sued. I wouldn't be able to be sued for saying that as long as I was on the floor or in committee. A weird one, I know, but that is still a benefit. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at what your assignment is for today because that wraps up all of your notes. Okay, guys, that's it. Today's assignment, send me a picture of your notes. That's all you got to do. Whether you took them on the computer, took them on your phone, wrote them down. If you wrote them down, take a picture, send it to me. As long as you have the notes that we took today written down, send that to me. That will serve as your attendance and assignment and attendance question. There it is for today. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day. We will see you next Monday. Next Monday, that's right. Monday, 3-day government week. We got a class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, which means next week we're going to have a weekly review quiz. Get ready for that bad boy. Until then, you guys have a great day and a great rest of your week. Take care.